Hello, everybody. Welcoming everyone here who is interested in building international companies. Here we have another stream of Go Global World from Australia, and today we have Australian speaker who's going to speak about DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. So here with me, you will see. A speaker who has a lot of experience in this kind of technology. And please welcome Rossco Paddison, streaming from Australia. And he's going to talk today on the topic decentralized autonomous organizations as a potential funding source for your startups. But before we start, and before I let Rossco to introduce himself, let's set the rules of this conversation, and I'll show a few slides about the community who is first time here. Before we start, guys, I ask to press the like button on our live stream, because this is how it will help us to get noticed by algorithm and show this information to more entrepreneurs around the world. Be interactive and just ask your questions in the chat, and we will try to answer all the questions, and share the stream with on your social media with other entrepreneurs, so we can connect with more people and give this knowledge to wider audience. This is all for you, and because this is a free community and we want more entrepreneurs to benefit out of this content. And now I'm going to show a few slides about who we are, just for those who are first time in our community. Let me quickly show the slides. Just 1 second. Okay. Sometimes not easy. Just a second. Is it all right? So I'm sharing my slides. Here you go. Can you see my slides?
Yep.
Rossco? Awesome. Yep. So for those who are first time on our community, this is the information. This is the contacts you can use to join our global network. If you have any questions, you can email us, and either just join our community, or just ask any questions, or suggest future topics of future speakers you're looking to get through our community. Why we exist? We are an English-speaking community for global entrepreneurs who speak English and build international companies. They seek to get customers in other countries and get funding abroad. Basically, we are building a digital Silicon Valley for global founders. And now our network accounts over 30 countries where we have representation. What is your role? This is a free community, but what's your role? We expect from every member of the community to help each other, like in Silicon Valley. It's common in Silicon Valley. It's already a culture there that one entrepreneur helps the other entrepreneur without asking anything in return. So they benefit both, because it's based on reputation, and they help each other grow businesses. Now, I want you to do the same on a global scale. So Rossco is already helping us, connecting from Australia, helping you guys from wherever you are globally to build your international businesses. And so you will ask questions and you'll get the answers. And this is how we expect from you to help each other on our global chats. This is our global team. We have over 40 people in 30 countries, and these are the people representing our organization locally. So you can ask for help in those countries, to enter those countries, or ask for their expertise about local ecosystem or global ecosystem. They are experienced entrepreneurs, and they are there to help you. This is a free Telegram bot that we created for you, so you can expand your network automatically. Basically, I call it automatic networking, because you don't do your networking, you don't go for any events, but just it works for you automatically and offers you someone from our global community, one of the members, to connect with and expand your network and build a quality connection. We also have some fun stickers, you can use them. And This kind of events we create not just for sake of views or likes or something else. We create this specifically that you guys can um, learn from the best people. We want you to take the next step forward in your businesses, and we bring the best people to specifically talk on certain topics that may help you. For this reason, we really appreciate your support with your word of mouth, with anything you can help us spread the voice so more people can learn about this. And we already had Bob Dorf, Elias Treboev, Donna Griffith, Ben Kaplan, and many more, just because those people already willing to give back to help international entrepreneurs. We also have a large network of partners across the world. And for example, in Australia, we have Mindhive community, we have Gold Coast Innovation Hub, and some of our members were accepted into this Gold Coast Innovation Hub acceleration program by our referral. And we have partnerships with universities, with accelerators, incubators in many countries, including the United States. So you can benefit out of this network. Now, I want to get back to Rossco, and uh, uh, so I just want to welcome you. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you for sharing, willingness to share your expertise and knowledge, because DAO is something new, and not many people are really well versed in this topic. And I'm really curious how it can help our global audience around the world, entrepreneurs, because founders always seek for new opportunities, new innovation, and some of them struggle to raise capital. So it's very, very interesting what we can do. Tell us about yourself, and let's get into the topic.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. I guess I can kind of interweave the story of why DAOs are here and why I'm here on this call simultaneously with a little brief overview. But essentially, one of the things that led me down the journey of discovering this unique model of having what are known as DAOs, or Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, is by trying to figure out how is the best way to create a finance company in a world with 196 different jurisdictions or countries that have all sorts of different rules. And it's very hard to create an equal level playing field when the rules of the game are so different every time you turn or look across a border, or you try to play a game in a different location. And also, we've seen this massive trend for the last, few hundred years of the people that we seek funding from being the wealthiest in the world, the angel investors, the venture capitalists, the people who have the ability to cut the big checks that startup founders are looking for, being weighted heavily at the top end of town. And this means, of course, that you get decisions that are driven by a very small segment of society's agenda, and that yields, a certain level of consistent results. So, that's kind of. I was struggling to build a payments application, and we were looking at all of these problems that had to be solved in order to make cross-border payments a thing. So we noticed, like, how do you play the game when you have to play by so many sets of rules? So that's what sort of led me here personally. And DAOs have taken off specifically in this little corner of crypto to begin with, known as decentralized finance, or DeFi. And the reason they're taken off in this little corner is because this little segment of one market that's trying to solve these cross-border fairness problems, and it gave us a way to do it. So I might share my screen if that's cool. Danielle, can I do that? I can do that. I can push a button. I can make that happen. Or is it already sharing? There we go. Epic. Thank you. So there's this whole notion that where we are right now in time, if I just talk about this as a possible few alternative futures that I see for the future of funding and startups, right? One thing we know is that time is always going to pass. It's always going to take us towards the future. And we know as time passes, our expectations are going to shift. The way we design the world to date has made it so that we've ended up in a certain location, and we've learned a lot of lessons from that, some of which we'd like to change, I imagine, on as a whole. Just take my jacket off, I'm a bit hot. And for you, if you're a startup founder and you're watching this, or you're someone in the startup community and you want to learn how to fund your business in 2021, you have a couple of different alternate paths you can take. You have this idea that you can go forward the way we've always been doing funding, which is to go after the sort of, I guess, normal pathway. And the normal pathway, I believe, is this pathway of, it's this disconnected process where you have to find strangers, pitch them your business idea, and prove to them that the business model is going to have this unique competitive edge, and it's going to be able to compete in the marketplace. And what happens ultimately is you sell. You would know this if you're a founder, or if you're in the startup community, you would know that you typically go and you put a pitch deck together, you create an offer for a seed round of funding, and you go and pitch it to people, sometimes friends and family to begin with, but at some point it starts to be people that you have to push beyond that barrier. And this ultimately, in startup land, in my opinion, is the illusion of control when it comes to starting a company, because you've got all these, you've basically, as a founder, you've got this desire to build this beautiful product or service and put it into the world. And when you take it out there into the world, you get investors to come along for the ride, and those investors have a primary motivation that is not to see your product succeed in the world. Investors, their primary motivation is to put capital, allocate it, and make money on their money. I don't think that that's necessarily the best way to attract capital for a startup, and I'll show you what other options exist in the future. But I feel like we've been a little bit like on this path where we have this disconnected process. And I also feel what this has bred into the startup community is this sense of being blinded by privilege, where we literally believe that the way you succeed is you come up with a good pitch, you come up with a good deck, you find the right investors, and then you've got to pitch it until someone agrees. And then you hear this story of someone's got a ridiculous valuation, and you're just like, you hear those stories. So we have this like blinkers on, and we can't see other potential futures. I believe if this continues to happen, we'll end up in a much worse situation over time. The worst case scenario for me is like this dystopia of funding. And what this would look like is we continue to play the same game we played, but we end up with an exuberant amount of control, an exuberant amount of regulations, and it actually just becomes a nanny state version of this same experience. And I think this is just the compounding effects of not paying attention to helping other people to play the game. And the reason it goes from this blinded by privilege, disconnected path, and if that is the way it compounds and continues to go down, is because the people who can't access the system, what they do is they blame and complain, and that results in regulators having to do something about it. So they place more regulation on startups in different jurisdictions, and that actually has this compounding effects of just driving us down into the ground when it comes to being able to get a fair deal when it comes to raising capital or building equity in our companies. In the future, I believe there's this notion, and we've seen this thanks to cryptocurrencies and blockchain and technologies and stuff like this. We've seen this reverse model. In this scenario here, what happens? You've probably seen an equity pie. Let me just draw this for a sec. You've probably seen in these scenarios, you have a cap table that's made up of a certain number of people that, and you go and you sell a slither of this cap table to begin with. You go and you sell a portion of your company for X amount of dollars for a percentage, right? We know that this is the way that funding is done right now. Now, this seems like the most logical pathway is to sell a little bit, and then raise a little bit more money, sell a little bit more, then raise a little bit more money. But actually, I think there's another way, and this is what I want to talk about: is these two pathways up the top here. So let me go into what I think these other couple of futures are. So I think that there's a pathway forward where founders, people, when it comes to finances for your startup or even finances for yourself, I believe there's a liberated future that you can have when it comes to your wealth. And the way in which that's done is by taking total control over your circumstances. What I've seen a lot of founders do in the funding cycle is they're literally sitting on their bottom waiting for someone to give them money before they execute their ideas. And we all know in the iterative startup process of lean methodology and things like this, you should be out there doing experiments. You should actually be in motion. You shouldn't be waiting for capital to execute. And so the first thing we know we do, and we learn this at like startup weekends and all sorts of great events all around the world, is that you've got to like start just being in action, being in momentum. And this is just the genesis moment of self responsibility as a founder, and that's great and all, but that's a little lonely. And whilst it might help you come up with an idea that ultimately you may be able to scale one day, you're going to want something a little bit more than this. You're going to want to compound self responsibility, compound the ability to take control into our own hands, and this is where DAOs come in. So what DAOs offer us is this not only the ability to liberate ourselves, but the ability to have shared liberty, where we can work together and create total freedom by all of us having control over our own affairs and building in a stack where we're able to each come to the table with effort and impact in a way that it is beneficial to the ecosystem as a whole. And really what this journey allows us to do is to expand and liberate ourselves from the way the current system is. And that requires, stepping forward as a leader and actually helping other people to become leaders. Now, a DAO inherently does this in a funding model. I know this is kind of like odd, but there's go with me here because I want to show you how we create this for yourself as a startup founder or even in your own personal finances. So there is also I've got a model that I'll show you a little later in today's prezzo, but I've got a model which is basically this cool Venn diagram. This is going to be dodgy drawing. It's a 3-circle Venn diagram that does not look great. But ultimately I've got this Venn diagram that I'm going to show you, and if you use this process of putting together these 3 levers that I'll show you tonight, you can accelerate this process. And in fact, what I've seen is, if done correctly, you can kind of have this leapfrog moment where you go from being in this shared liberty where you work together with other people to actually coming back and creating what I call shaping liberty. So as a founder, you get all of these people together and you formulate a DAO, and you make it so that you can get other people around you who want to shape liberty with you. So let me show you this and move on through. I hope this is making sense. I hope it's good. Daniil, is there any questions or comments or anything that you want me to jump on before I move on, dude, or just keep rolling? I'm good either way. I'm going to assume I keep going. So this set of 3 questions I want to ask, just as critical questions. These are questions I thought through for specifically my own business model. And I believe it's like a really cool, clarifying set of questions to ask yourself as a founder when it comes to building a DAO specifically. This is very different when it comes to how you would generate capital in other company formats. But let me just run you through some of this, because this is really interesting and really clarifying when you go through this. So there's this outcome that I believe is important for all founders to be able to create inside their company, which is this idea of having perpetual wealth. And what that means is a runway that is consistently ever growing so that you can deploy new products into new markets, acquire new talent, do all the sorts of things you need to do as a founder. And a question you can ask yourself as a founder, or even in your own personal financial wealth, like I shared, is you can ask yourself this question, which is, how can I capture constantly increasing value from my financial and personal participation? And if you think about it as this spectrum, which is below here, if you think about it as this spectrum, you can kind of rate yourself on this as a scale. So if that question, you hear that question for the very first time, and you're asking yourself, like, I don't even really know what this means. The idea of having a perpetual runway, the ability to continuously fund my startup. If you're even confused as to what that is, then you're at this like 1 to 3 out of 10 kind of rating for yourself, right? If you've already started building your startup and you've raised some funds and you're putting those funds into some sort of value creation method, but you haven't quite got it to the point of where you want it, then this is probably you in this range of 4 to 5 to 6. Some startups have raised some capital and they've figured out how to invest it wisely so that they can increase their runway year on year. And that would put you in the 7 to 8 range. And then there's this ability, thanks to the advent of the tech that I'm working with, especially, that you can put yourself in this space where I call it co-efficiency. You can get to a place where for every dollar you raise, that dollar summons another dollar from the ground up and is able to put road out in front of you to give you more ability to build more of your roadmap. So this is where you've literally built yourself essentially an economic machine inside of your DAO, inside of your startup, inside of your own personal finances. The next thing that is really important when it comes to this stuff is the outcome that you want to have is value capture, because beyond just the money part, the value capture is, as we know, money is not the only type of value out there. We have all sorts of things that we want to capture value from. For example, the relationships that we have, the talent that we have, the IP that we have. We want to be able to use that as leverage as we're out there building a startup or building our wealth or whatever it might be. And so a great question, critical question to ask yourself here is how can I capture consistently increasing value from my financial and personal participation? And at one end of the spectrum here, and I won't go through these in absolute great depth, but at one end of the spectrum here, you're kind of hoping you're out there doing actions, and you're hoping that maybe one of the random things that you do as a founder is going to yield some sort of a result. The next section, which is actually a little bit more empowered than hoping, is complaining. This is the people in the startup scene who are saying, oh, it's so hard and it's this and it's that. That's actually a little bit better than hoping, because hoping is hoping's like dreaming, not even in the game. At least complaining means that you've rolled your sleeves up and you've had some knockbacks. Impacting is where you're starting to get runs on the board and the way you'd want to have that happen. And creating is where you've changed the game so that you're in control of it. You're actually laying the rules out, making the foundation so that you can't not raise capital and can't not grow the business that you want to grow. And then the third thing that I think is important for startups in 2021, especially when we look at the global regulatory landscape, is what is your freedom status as a founder and as a company when we look at things from a range of issues that impact startups, things from like GDPR laws, like privacy laws, through to financial laws, through to censorship in different countries, through to even just like a social cancel culture that we see running rapid throughout the world in many different ways. It's important that the systems that you have in your business have the ability to grow stronger from attacks rather than to grow weaker from attacks. So the question you'd want to ask yourself is how autonomous are the systems I operate in to get fair rewards for the efforts that I put out as a founder and as someone just trying to be a generative, great human being in the world. And at one end of the spectrum, it's very hard for some people to do that. They are, in fact, censored, and it's very hard for them to take actions in different circumstances and social settings and socioeconomic situations, and that's a real challenge. But there's usually pockets or holes where people can pull themselves up and figure out a way to get things, but they're really much behaving in a system that's very tightly controlled. And usually what this means is you need permission slips or certain sorts of types of licenses or whatever it is to be able to run and operate your business. And then most businesses in the world operate in this domain here, your Fortune 500 companies, all this kind of thing. They run and operate in a limited setting, meaning they are playing in a few different sandboxes, and they're playing by all these different finite rules. At the very top end of the scale in this system, you have this idea of a permissionless system. And so for businesses and startups, there's this idea that you will be able to build a system that is interoperable with a whole bunch of different landscapes in the world, where you can straight up, take action to participate and generate value for different communities, and be able to do it without necessarily having to ask so much for permission. So I know I'm talking a lot. That's my job as a speaker, but if there is any questions or anything like that, I'm cool to free flow as I go through this as well. When we put this whole model together, and we think about how this comes together, when we look at the landscape of founders out there, we find these sort of like 4 different tiers. Daniil, are you jumping in with a question there, mate?
No, I just wanted to remind everyone that, guys, use this opportunity to ask your questions, because Rossco is here to take your questions. And if you want to make this more interactive, ask now, and I'll find a moment to stop Rossco and squeeze your question. All right,
no dramas.
Let's
cool.
Keep going.
Thanks, mate. So I've noticed this landscape of people who are interacting with crypto are very similar to startup founders. And you have this, and you have these sort of like, I guess, levels or tiers, and I think the first level or tier of people trying to grow their wealth for their company or for themselves is that they have this sense, they believe that something is wrong with the current system, and they want to do something that's new and innovative, but they're a little scared of things like crypto and DAOs and stuff like that, because they seem all too risky. And at this level, this is the level where people are confused as to how they might be able to create value in different generative ways in the future. They're hoping that something's going to change, and overall they feel pretty censored. I call this category of person the dreamer. Because they're dreaming something will be different, but they're not in actions. And this is usually there's a simple shift of where they come out and they put their head above the fear, or maybe it's ignorance, maybe it's something they need to learn, and they put their head above that water. And the truth of the matter is that things like crypto or innovative funding models or DAOs or those kind of things have really made it so that you can build this stabilized system of perpetual wealth that helps you capture value and build freedom status in your businesses. And this is where you roll up your sleeves, and this is where someone learns how these DAOs work. They start playing with some tools that I'll show you a little later in the presentation. But you start learning by playing, by doing, by getting in the game, by starting to play the systems and respond and interact with other people in the ecosystem. And this gives you a sense of ownership, like it puts you in the game. Beyond that, there's people who start to understand this technology and how these DAOs and crypto and these different, stabilized systems can build wealth for them and their companies. And they start playing. This is where you get to the level where you're strategizing and you're investing and you're having some impact with your actions. You still feel a little limited. But what happens is as you get to this, people get to this level, and I've observed a lot of people get to this level, and they get a little complacent because they feel like that what they did to get to this level is going to be the same thing that they just need to repeat now, and they need to put in more effort and just constantly think that the rules of the game are the same. So I think the truth of the matter, when you really go to this top level, is that the entire game has changed. Everyone's been thinking that startup culture is, on this definite path that it's going to stay on, this path that I spoke about back here, like we have people who are going to get these checks, people are going to find some stranger on the planet that's going to give them a check, and they've never met this stranger before, and this disconnected human is going to take a chunk of their business and magically offer value somehow and really help them build their company. And I think that is a little bit of a myth, if I'm really honest, because the way in which you want to build a startup in 2021 is you want to build the funding model, the incentives model inside your business model. And you can do that with a DAO. So this is just to kind of like set up the frames, get you thinking as to why this is important, why this is interesting, why this is something that might be very useful for you as a startup founder. So hopefully this is insightful so far. I want to share with you guys another model here. Let me just zoom into this so I got my notes up here. So I think there's something that's really interesting. Actually, let me just quickly share this. I think that's something that's very interesting in the crypto scene, especially because we're talking about decentralized autonomous organizations, and right now they run on blockchain technology, which most people think cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is all just a bunch of volatile assets. They think that they are these things that go up and down on the screen. They think that what's going on above the surface is all this noise. There's people making money really quickly. There's people losing money really quickly. There's Elon Musk is talking about coins named after dogs, and then some other countries banning it, some other countries making rules where it's allowed. Like there's all these things that are constantly happening, and it's a lot of noise and confusion above the surface. But when you pull back the surface and you go down a level deeper, there is this real movement of startups, founders, and individuals even just creating wealth for themselves in a way that we've never seen before. Instead of playing in these zero-sum games, there's people who are actually building, real long-term coefficient wealth that's just absolutely doing things we haven't ever seen before. And then you have a bunch of people who are capturing value in ways that we haven't seen before as well. And they're doing this by literally, like I said, creating value and creating impact with the actions that they're doing, building long-term relationships. And then there's also these startups that now in this DAO, this decentralized autonomous world, that are building themselves a complete freedom status. They're creating a playground where they're able to make decisions that are in a permissionless nature, where they're not having to, like if you look at the startup scene right now in Silicon Valley, one of the largest overheads on all of the P&Ls of the publicly listed companies that you and I can go both research on Google is legal and compliance. And the amount of money that I don't know the globally collective number of specific dollars spent on it, but I've seen startups, like fintech startups, I've seen them spend 30 to 40% on compliance as far as their P&Ls go. I've seen normal everyday startups like Facebook, their expenditure on legals is rising. And this is just like not an efficient way to run a company. To just basically have all these people who are just like professionally arguing all the time. So you need to have a freedom status for your company where you can have the ability to take some actions in a permissionless way that are generative for society. And the reason why I believe we all deserve this, including yourself, is I think that we have to be able to have a pathway forward for startups and for you as a founder to design your own self-determined future in a way that is generative for everyone else in the ecosystem as well. And I've put together this model that I think brings all three of these things together so that each and every one of us can have this as a founder, as someone who's building wealth in the world. So let me show you this. This is the big piece of the puzzle here. So, and this really brings the whole DAO picture together for me, is you have this idea of being able to create self-determined futures for yourself. And I'll just make this much better. There we go. You have this idea of being able to create a self-determined future for yourself and for your customers, your stakeholders, and everything in a startup. You need these three things that I spoke about to bring this together. And I'm going to get into the levers that sort of give us these outputs. So we have this perpetual wealth, which you have been following along. that is the generative ability to always constantly have an ever-growing runway for yourself as a startup founder. We have this ability to have a freedom status as a founder and as a company to be able to build things that are lasting in a world that's changing so damn quick, and the ability to capture value beyond just the treasury of your company. I think there's three primary levers that make this possible in a DAO. First is this notion of open finance, the ability to create a system that is like systems as we know them right now in time, in history, have been very much finite games that we've been playing. We've been playing, in finance especially, and funding. We've been playing zero sum finite games where 1 + 1 = 2, and I'm not saying that math is no longer relevant. It totally is. But the difference between a finite game and an infinite game, which is where I believe we're heading, is in an infinite game, the goals are very different. So in a finite game, we're playing to win the game right now, and in a infinite game, we're playing to actually keep playing. Is actually the goal. So with open finance, the goal is to make it so that we can have more people have access, more people have the freedom to use fair and equitable services when it comes to finances on a global platform. So when we look at the goals of open finance, it really is this massive paradigm shift from this finite thinking, this types of games where there's winners and losers, to this infinite type of thinking, whereas how can we work towards everyone winning? All right, let me just copy these bad boys, and I'm going to do the next little lever here for you. So lever number 2 is this notion of having regenerative systems. So in your business as a startup, you need to have systems that are self-fulfilling prophecies that are going to continue to grow and add value not only to yourself, but your stakeholders, your customers, and everyone in it. Now, the paradigm shift of regenerative systems is going from zero-sum thinking to this notion of, whoa, I did a keyboard shortcut I didn't know existed just then. This notion of going from zero-sum thinking to this idea that we like to call sustaining excess. Now, what this notion is this is the notion, and you've seen this in actually a really good example of this is agriculture. In the world, we've seen systems in agriculture where we have this thing called monocropping, which is how farming's been done for the last 100 or so years or more in different scenarios in different ways. And we've had this monocropping where we just, we farm a piece of land, we take a crop, we let the dirt sit, and then, we farm it again and again and again. And we've seen the soil health die in nature because we're just trying to just win each time we do it. Whereas we've seen these emergent systems, especially in the last few years, of like syntropic farming, regenerative agriculture, all these different sorts of things. We've seen really good examples of systems that can be built that provide more than enough and produce an excess, and we can just take the excess from the system. And the reason I'm telling you this is a metaphor is because it's very, very useful. We just take the excess from the system and leave the bulk of the system working to continuously generate it. And if you think about your treasury as a founder, this is something you want to do is you want to go from zero-sum thinking when it comes to managing the money that you've raised to a thinking of how am I going to sustain excess in the system, and how am I going to make this so that overall we get to keep playing the game in this infinite manner. And then finally, the third lever that is important in 2021 is this notion of having ultimate responsibility. We see too many founders gaslighting their users by saying that they're hiding behind these walled gardens of different user interfaces and stuff like that, and not really participating with the rest of the ecosystem and their customers. And also their customers have no rights. Like you see someone like, for example, if you're a startup founder, you probably heard the story of people who advertise on Facebook having their ads shut down because, they didn't follow a rule or all this kind of stuff. And that's because ultimately at the end of the day, in that context, you have to play by someone else's rules. And that's because we live in a world right now that is, the paradigm has been gatekeeping. You have to have such and such a person's permission to be able to do stuff. With DAOs and blockchain, we're moving to a world that will be focused on open engagement. You'll be able to participate in different systems in a way that we've never seen before, and we're starting to see it in DAOs. And so this responsibility really is done in a new way, and I actually call this lever ultimately rebellious responsibility, because in 2021, the most rebellious thing you can do is be responsible for yourself and those around you. And there's a whole bunch of other things that come into this system to make it work. I don't have time to go into each of one of these because we will just run out of time, and I do want to allow time for questions and stuff. But I'll just give you a quick little run around the side here with how this comes together. So the way in which you create open finance is you need these three principles in place. The first is you must build on decentralized solutions. You must have the ability to give frameworks that people can use, that they can operate with and access from everywhere in the world. You've got to level the playing field, and decentralized solutions do that because they enable you to have peer-to-peer technology, which means anyone anywhere in the world can participate in the system without having to get I like to call it a permission slip to do so. The other thing about decentralized solutions is that they're immutable. Then they're ultimately the most fair, incorruptible thing you can have, because it's a set of rules without rulers per se, which we haven't seen before. The next thing we need to do to make finance open in the world as a model, so that we can use it to build a DAO for your startup, or to have fair and equitable access for founders to be able to access capital, is we have to have this notion of frictionless interfacing with the world. We need to be able to have equal access to capital, and DAOs do that for us. It's something that's very, very cool, and I've never seen it before, and it's pretty nascent too. Like, this whole scene, this whole space has only existed for just a few years. Like, I remember, I know the first articles ever written on it were about four odd years ago. But I was, hanging out with a community of less than 500 people in the world, just little less than 2 years ago, that were really playing with this stuff. And there's this, the community is thriving and growing. Like, current people interacting in DAOs in the world is up to the millions of people who own these things called DAO tokens, that then allow people to vote in a transparent way on different things that are happening inside these ecosystems and businesses and products that are being produced. So this creates this third thing that is required for this, is this idea of having automated fairness. You must have a system that aligns incentives, that creates an interdependence where we can all be self-responsible human beings, but it ultimately distributes authority. There is no CEO. We're all CEOs and no one's CEOs. That's the destination of where we need conglomerates and startups to end up in order to create really interesting economic models. The other thing you need to have as a business that operates in a blockchain technology sense is you must have a technology flywheel. And by this, I mean, is if you're building on blockchains, blockchain technology is moving fast. So you must have an iterative process that you're constantly going through as a founder, an improvement cycle. You must be going through one that's driven by data, that's accessing and amplifying the open source infrastructure that already exists, and giving back to that. It's a great way to acquire talent as a founder as well. It's a super interesting way to participate. And if you are constantly looking at and making sure you're up to date, you've got all your version tracking and everything like that, you're going to have things like exceptional documentation, and you're going to have it so that other people can just pick up the work, add value to your ecosystem, and they can earn some of the tokens of maybe your DAO as well, which is quite this interesting idea of active participation, which we'll get to more in a minute. The next little piece that brings together these regenerative systems is that you must have ecosystem intelligence built into your business model. You must have in your business model the ability to get high quality aggregated data feeds. You've got to have the ability to analyze the chain data, like chain analytics. You must have community intel. You must be up with the industry trends. and you must understand the systemic constraints of blockchain technologies. It's super easy to learn about blockchain technologies. There's so much stuff online. There is a learning curve, right? But if some of this stuff I'm saying is like going straight over your head, that's cool. It's probably most likely exciting you, though. You're probably like going, wow, this sounds like deep and there's a lot in it, but there's a lot in it because there's a lot of the smartest people in the world right now have their attention in this space. And then the next thing you need to think about to have a regenerative system is you must think about governance succession. You must think about how does I can't always spell when I'm trying to type and write at the same time. it's not my best skill. Hold on, governance succession. This is where you must have a system that is focused on slowly creating the process of being decentralized, and you don't decentralize too fast because you end up with what's called a zombie project where no one is participating because it got decentralized too quickly. But you got to, like, as it's actively being participated in, you have to figure out this leadership process of a balance of proactivity and reactivity. You've also got to make it so that someone who participates in your DAO can be rewarded. And this, just a context, you might remember over here, we talked about this idea of, in the old model, you sold a piece of your company, you kept a chunk, and then you sold a bit more, and then you sold a bit more. And that's how ultimately you did these rounds of finances, how you did the thing. And if you're the blue in this circumstance, that's how it was done in traditional companies. I'm just going to show you the tokenomics of my project that I'm working on called SyncDAO for a second here, just as an example, and show you that this is like the cap table from day one of this project. You'll see over 50% of the pie here is in what's called product usage incentives, which means the people who end up with our tokens are our users. The people building our technology and the affiliates promoting our technology are the people who actually end up owning the technology. So the way you raise funds in a DAO-oriented world is you actually get people involved in this process called governance succession. You can sell some of the tokens to raise some capital, and there is a capital raising process inside of this. But you actually give tokens, you actually give the company away as people proactively participate in it. This is also done a lot in tech right now, and also another way in which you can incentivize people to, be an affiliate or a builder or be someone who's participating in the governance and fostering the culture you want to build inside your business, is you can create these creator incentives. And we've seen this in all sorts of different platforms like YouTube and all these influencer roles. People can become like a marketing force for your business inside of this system and have it so that they can ultimately add value to your business to create the equity in your business with their actual effort and their insight and their impact and the value that they bring, so they can capture value whilst they participate in helping you build your business. This does take a certain level of leadership, though, and so for this paradigm of rebellious responsibility, where we allow people to come in and create a part of our business inside of our business without even having a job interview. And they can create content and they can bring customers and they can serve people. We really need to reimagine how authority works. We need to create organizations that are bossless, that are beyond committees, that have this sense of direct democracy, and they have these immutable, incorruptible contracts so that they can create that. And I've got one final piece here, which is this last segment on rebellious responsibility. And then I'm going to go back to you, Neil, in a second and capture some of these questions. But you must have in the system must be designed to ultimately allow people to permissionally progress the system. And this means that anyone who is self-starting, that wants to input effort, and the system is designed in such a way that it rewards people for taking action and they can increase their own innovation status as a result, they must be able to just pick up the tools and start working on your business with you. And I believe when you use this model together, like I said, like I shared here tonight, when you use this model together, you create a world where you're expanding and you're liberating and you're leading others and leading yourself to take the driver's seat so that you can create shared liberty and ultimately shape the way liberty looks in the future from where we are now. So I think if you want to speed things up, play a role, maybe as a founder, consider starting a DAO and using that as a way to bring about this, next generations of business where no one's a CEO, everyone's a CEO. There's no job interviews. People just add impact and start working to build towards shared outcomes. And we build a very new sense of where things are going. Hopefully this has been insightful. I'm super keen to answer some questions, and look forward to hearing from you guys.
That's exciting. Thank you so much. This is an awesome presentation, and that's the level of complexity in this blockchain sphere is quite high. But clarifying all that stuff and making it all pieces together, it's exactly what entrepreneurs are looking for. We have a few questions from the audience, but before we start this, guys, I want to remind you, this is your chance to ask questions from a global speaker we brought from Australia for you, and now you're in different parts of the world. Ask your questions. Ask. There is no stupid question. You may ask anything that you feel like you have in mind, and we'll try to answer it to you in the most simple way. Of course, this topic might be complex for some of you, so just take your chance. And the other thing I want to say thank you to you, but also I want to say thank you to Tia Goldstein, who were the reason we connected with Rossco Paddison, and Tia was also recently a speaker from on our global community. She was talking on sustainability, and it was a very interesting conversation. So find her video on our YouTube channel and give her some likes on that video, because it was an awesome conversation, very valuable for startups. So we have a first question, and I want to take the first question exactly from Tia, and she was asking, let's see, can you see the question? I want to understand how this is different from venture capital from the lens of impact as in sustainable development goals and sustainability.
You know what's hilarious about sustainability development goals is, Tia, I've been meaning to tell you this. Our token is SDG for SyncDAO governance token in our project. And I saw you write that online the other day, and I'm like, of course that acronym's the same as our project name, which is quite hilarious. So from a sustainability standpoint, I think it comes down to, for any DAO, it really comes down to what are the permissionless activities people can do in that ecosystem. So a permissionless activity example in a DAO context would be like, I'll give you an example of a permissionless bounty as a very specific narrow one to create a context. There's this idea that you can have a job board. You know how we've all used like Fiverr and Upwork and these kind of things in the past, where you go and select someone to help you produce an outcome. What sustainable projects will be able to do is create a list of the things they want done. People will be able to do it without applying to do the work. And they will be able to take off the shelf things that are already on mission that the DAO has voted on as a collective that they want to have achieved. And they'll be able to add value in that context and then submit the work to be rewarded for their participation. So the DAO and the forming body of the DAO is instrumental in setting what is on mission, what is not on mission. It's very much a leadership challenge in the early days to get that really clear, get that really ironed out. But obviously, this is something you have immense talent in also, Tia. And I'm sure you would have lots of great exercises to take people through to get on mission, to get on point with that as well.
Yeah, she said that Rossco is a legend. And she is also adding that, I'm going to put it on the screen, in terms of how VC works, is focused on hyper growth at the expense of impact. How does this change that?
I think there will be DAOs that will exist that won't focus on impact. I think there will be DAOs that will focus on impact. I know that this is going to come down to the humans that are interacting with the systems at the end of the day and the intentions of those humans. for me personally, like I'm a stand for open and fair access to finance for everyone on the planet. The fact that you're if you're an online freelancer working in Argentina, there's no way you should be paying the sorts of taxes they charge you for offshore income. Or if you're a female who lives in one of the United Arab Emirates countries, and your husband doesn't give you permission to have a bank account, I think you deserve to have a bank account. Like, there's all these different sort of edge cases where I'm a stand for in terms of my values and the DAO I'm building. It's going to come down to those individual founders to really establish a collective where people can work towards something good. Really weird side note: I watched the movie Free Guy last night with Ryan Reynolds. This is this like movie about a metaverse where Ryan Reynolds gets dropped in and he finds out he's inside a game. And I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I hope the ending of that movie is how this plays out. That's this green zone vision I have for everything, of this shared liberty. But if you haven't checked that out, Tia, watch that movie.
Yeah, it's a good spoiler anyway. We have a few more questions, and everyone, please keep asking questions. If you have more questions, we will keep Rossco on our stream, so you can get your answers. So we have a question from SV. Here's the question: how tech startups get into DAO and fundraise? So just if you can give some steps.
I might just share my screen again real quickly, Danielle, and just show some super functional steps here. So from there's a couple of different platforms I just want to show you. There's one called DAOhouse.club. This is the ability to spin up what's known as a Moloch DAO, which is a type of DAO. There's another platform here called aragon.org, and I'll put the links to these in the comments after we're done here. But this is aragon.org. Or the other website is DAOhouse.club. And these both have interfaces. So like in DAOhouse, for example, if you click, create the app, you can literally like connect your wallet, your blockchain wallet of choice, and you can start creating an organization. Same in Aragon, you can create an organization, you go through the steps, and you actually look at like the different decision-making mechanisms. It's also available on what's called Rinkeby in the Ethereum network. If you actually just Google, how to create a test DAO on Aragon, if you just YouTube it, you'll find plenty of 5, 10, and 15-minute videos showing you a little walkthrough of how it works. And you can go through a process of just deciding how this company is going to start from the ground up. Let me give you a little bit of a sense as to how this works as a funding mechanism for founders, though. What you have to do that is, like any startup journey, you need to create a deck. You need to create, a proposal of what's the problem that your company is going to solve and how you're going to solve it, and do that. And you can take this deck to investors, and you can say, hey, we're creating this DAO. We're going to have this process where we're going to, give our users a piece of the puzzle. But you do have this angel chunk here. You do have a small chunk of the pie that you can do some pre-sales with. You can use things like launch pads and do some public sales stuff as well there. You do have to have different vesting terms and all these sorts of things. By the way, this document, the tokenomics document that I sent you, is on my website, which is syncdao.com/resources, has like the quick links to everything and all our community. But you need a deck, right? And then with that deck, you can sell some of the tokens, but you're going to still give away most of your products to the community, to the users, to the people interacting in the game. So it's not like it's not traditional in the traditional sense that people are used to. Also, it's very different when it comes to, and I don't need to share the screen much anymore, but it's very different to a traditional startup funding journey, because in a traditional startup funding is you raise seed capital, or maybe there's friends and family before, and then you do Series A, B, C, maybe D. You might do some expansion rounds, and then finally you do an IPO. In cryptocurrency, it's the exact opposite. You do your IPO is your first event. You do like one little round of funding. You do this maybe angel round, and then you're straight into it. You launch your token in the open market, and people can participate. You can actually launch the token before raising funds in the Moloch DAO style. That's done in the DAOhouse style, and people just come in and actually to to do some of the work, they actually have to put up a little bit of capital to say, hey, I'm real. I'm showing my commitment to be a part of this process. So yeah, it's a very cool process.
Awesome. That's actually already some step forward for startups who are not in crypto, and they might start testing this DAO thing, and maybe that's another way for fundraising for them. That's actually a great advice, and they might be checking it out. Another question we have from Matthew. Let me see. From Matthew Cotton. From Matthew Cotton Burston.
Hey, Matt.
What's your take on hash graph tech compared to blockchain?
So this is getting into a very specific blockchain question, which is debating what type of consensus algorithm is going to be the most secure across technologies that unfolds in the future. I have a broad view on this that is not blindsided by what may or may not happen in the ecosystem, but essentially in blockchain technology, the standard of building almost everything right now, when you look at coin market cap and you look at all of the projects inside the crypto ecosystem, that 5,000 or 6,000 coins on there, or on CoinGecko, or all those kind of listing websites. Over 90% of those projects are built on the Ethereum blockchain, which is the main blockchain right now. It's the main talent pool, lives, breathes, and works around the Ethereum blockchain, or EVM compatible chains, which means Ethereum virtual machine compatible chains. And I do think that Hashgraph will be something that in the future might be a very good solution. And ultimately, when you're building a regenerative system, when you're building a system as a founder, you need to put this into your iterative cycle to be looking at the data, looking at where the talent is, looking where the tooling is, and looking at where the opportunities are from an economic standpoint as to where your project should be built. And I think right now, as far as that technology flywheel turns, it's way too early to make a big bet on Hashgraph. It's way too early, but it's interesting, super interesting.
All right. We have the other question. Just a second.
You're all good. I'm just going to fill up my water bottle for 1 second.
Yeah. How do I get back to questions? All right. There is another question from mobile subs monetization. Does DAO get into any issues with SEC?
SEC. So the SEC is a US specific body that regulates what is and is not it regulates securities specifically in the US. So SEC doesn't have an issue with DAOs. So DAO is this cool platform, and the usage I showed you tonight, the SEC has not had any issues with, where the project is giving away to its users its equity. But there are projects that have called themselves a DAO that are not actually a DAO, where they maintain most of the pie, like the old economic model of startups, and just slap the label of DAO on the front. The SEC is making examples of them because they're not actually community-driven projects. They're actually just founder-only driven commercial enterprises that are pretending to be a community project. And the SEC basically needs a key person to a key driver of the system to have as a person to charge. Like, so the good example of DAOs is like, who's the CEO of Bitcoin? And the answer to that is well, no one, right? There's no one person that can be taken to court and charged of doing the actions of Bitcoin. But there is this moment in DAOs where someone may own a larger portion of it, and that person takes actions that are viewed a certain way by the SEC, then yes, by all means, they could get in trouble with the SEC. But if you understand the landscape well, that's not going to happen to you, as long as you have people participating, putting in effort, being rewarded in tokens for effort. And that function of that token is not to drive up value, it's to have a mechanism of participation and coordination, not just a financial driver. So yeah, it's quite a nuanced field.
It is. But based on this, to summarize, do you think that it's a risk for startups that gets into DAO without much expertise in crypto, get into consider this as a uh, as a safe? Um,
Depends on their industry, Danielle. It depends on their
okay.
industry and on their personal experience in different business contexts. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're trying to create a global business, if you're trying to create a truly global business, then you
Right.
might want to look at what sort of roadblocks or challenges you're going to have when you integrate into different marketplaces, different global markets. If those challenges look like they're going to be really difficult, a DAO might be a really good way to start, rather than end there. But if you're just building, an Uber for France or something like that, and you have no intention of leaving France, then it might not be the best model. It
Mhm.
comes down to a little bit of contemplating how active are the people, how active are your customers going to be, and how active is your ecosystem going to be, and do you want to have an office with 10,000 people, or do you want a million customers and 1% of those customers are actually team members also, inherently?
Yeah.
How do you want it to be?
And how is it expensive to deal with SEC? I mean, to make it full compliant, because this can be considered as security. So, or you can bring other risks. I don't know which ones, but just to be prepared
It needs
for
to be
and compliant.
considered a security. The only function of the token would be for the price of the token to go up. And like in a governance token, like our SyncDAO governance token, for example, the token is inherently worthless. It just gives people the right to vote. It doesn't give them a dividend or an equity share. It just gives them a right to place a vote. So it depends on the construct or the constitution of how you set it up. Like if you check out and read through like our light paper, for example, you'll see exactly how the whole system is designed. Might the people in the system vote that in future they get a dividend? Maybe, but I'm not going to place that vote, especially in the early foundational days of the business. Nor will I probably ever, because I think that it is a community project and shouldn't be driven by that incentive alone. But the point I'm making is that it is pretty clear that you can do this, and there's been a pathway. It was bedded down by a US company called Compound Finance. If you follow to the T how they did their an initial distribution offering, which is called an IDO, that's the moment of where you start sharing your product usage incentive with your users in a DAO context. They did it by the book. They're in a US regulatory situation, and they're completely fine. Other players that did a really good job of this is MakerDAO. They did a very good version. Yearn Finance did a very good version. If you look at how they launched their DAOs, those three companies, you'll see really good models for maintaining a business that is not being hyper scrutinized.
Yeah. Just maybe I repeat my question, or maybe you already answered this, but what would be your estimate for basic compliance with SEC if you want to be compliant? Maybe zero, you would say, but maybe there should be some planned budget for startups before they get into DAO. If I may ask it this way, because I'm not really an expert in this field.
Um, No, because a DAO, like, I mean, we could spin up a DAO right now. I could open up Aragon. I could connect to the Ethereum blockchain. I could choose there's going to be 20 participants. It would be 20 Ethereum addresses on the blockchain. The SEC
Mm.
does not regulate the Ethereum blockchain. Miners and nodes do. And they're a distributed group of people across the world. Where you're going to get in trouble with the SEC is if you're like working and operating inside the states, or you're offering financial products to US citizens without and selling it to them and breaking the marketing rules of the SEC are more the problem. But for you actually creating a DAO or anything like that, there's no real challenge per se, because you're just creating like a ability to vote on proposals. You're not creating a financial mechanism per se. So if you're trying to create a DAO purely just to make money, then yeah, get ready to lawyer up. But if you're creating one just to coordinate a group of people who have shared goals, then just be prepared to share responsibility from day one and not have it rest on any one of your shoulders, and enroll more people into the vision and mission.
I see. Thanks. It's getting more clear on that right now. We have another question, and I think it's already time is up, and I don't want to take too much time of yours. I really appreciate this. Let's take the final one from Mr. Sib Wolf. What about compliance for some countries like Russia? You can become foreign agent with far-reaching consequences.
Sure. I think we're going to enter a time of a pseudonymous economy. The founder of Bitcoin was Satoshi Nakamoto, which is, an unnamed individual or group of individuals somewhere on the internet. We're seeing lots more edge cases of different projects launching pseudonymously. You don't even know. You walk down the street tomorrow, you might walk past Satoshi Nakamoto, but you don't know who he is because his photo is nowhere to be found online. I would, if you're living in really oppressive conditions, I would consider, pseudonymous success. Is who's got a really great interview on this is Balaji Severinson, who used to be the CTO of Coinbase. He recently did a great interview on Tim Ferriss's podcast about exactly this, the idea of this pseudonymous economy. You're going to be able to have an avatar where you work behind an avatar, and when you switch off work, you don't have to be on. I think it's going to be quite an interesting world, especially with where Facebook's taking the metaverse and all sorts of things. I think the future is about to get faster, and it's about to get realer, and it's about to get weirder.
Especially the weird one. Well, it was an awesome stream. I really appreciate all the clarifications and preparing all the information for us. I really like when it's been done step by step and complex things explained in a simple way. Still, I as not an expert in the field of crypto and especially DAO, I feel like I have some more to research and to deeper understand. But definitely opening a new sphere for us, for entrepreneurs who are deeply into startups, traditional technology startups, not into DAO yet. And I think there is a lot of opportunity for them. Before I let you go, sure. And before we close this session, I want you to think of how you want to close it, and what's your final words of wisdom, or what's your on your on your heart or mind you want to share as a closing statement with the audience. And before you do this, while you're thinking of this, I'm going to share a few slides about our upcoming events with the audience. So guys, don't forget to say thanks and your final wishes to Rossco on our global chat. And while you're doing this, I'm going to show you the upcoming events. If you want to meet global speakers like Rossco, like Steve Torres, like Ben Kaplan, like all those people, make sure to subscribe to our global community on Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and especially the website goglobal.world. Our upcoming events, we're gonna have more awesome speakers. So another one, global speaker from Finland. He's gonna speak about pitching with confidence. And Rossco was talking about preparing a pitch. So this guy will teach you how to pitch, so you can really get funded, for example, hopefully. The other thing is becoming fundable. What it is, like, I really like it's a serious issue for many founders. It's not only about preparing a nice deck, but really a set of steps to be taken, to be done by startups. So we will speak with Olga Duka. She is a GP at a venture fund, and Catherine Yushina will be our moderator. She's the CEO of SOAR. Another great speaker from Copenhagen, AI investment manager at a venture fund, and she's going to speak about Nordic startup ecosystem, opportunities for international startups. So this is another series of interviews or webinars we have about startup ecosystems. We had one about Australia, Lithuania, Estonia. We're going to soon have Nordic startup ecosystem and more ecosystem, so you can see the difference and opportunities for your startups, for your companies. Well, if you want to see updates on the events and see more events, just subscribe to our Eventbrite page, Go Global World on Eventbrite, or just scan this QR code and join our global chat on Telegram. It's called Go Global World Chat. Find it on via QR code or just search it in there. Also, we have similar chats on LinkedIn and Facebook, so you can meet and chat with global audience members of our community, all entrepreneurs building international companies. And most importantly, contribute. It's important that you give first than take. And most people I see, they try to take first rather than give. It doesn't work like that. If you want to build your network, if you want to build your reputation on a global scale, you got to give first. Then you'll meet a lot of people who are going to give you back a lot. Like Rossco today, he gave us a lot, and I'm happy to share with Rossco anything he asked with me. So I'm really open to help him at any time. So this is our contacts. You may email us on any purpose that may help you, or you want to help us. Maybe you have some suggestions for next speaker or topic. But this is how you also might become a leader or in your country and becoming our ambassador. We already have 40 people on the team, as you know, and you might be the one we select. We have a very strict process of selection. We are choosing the best, and you might be the one. And if you are planning to join our community, just go on our website. It's free to join, register, and get part of our global network. Thank you so much, guys. And I'm really, really happy that Rossco joined us today. And I'm super excited that we managed to unpack this complex topic for many entrepreneurs. And I'm glad you agreed to be the one who did it for us. Thank you so much. And what would be the final closing statement?
Thanks, Daniel. I think, when I first heard about the opportunity of blockchain, the opportunity of, using a decentralized autonomous organization, I didn't quite get it myself. I watched a lot of content on the subject. And if there's just one thing I could say that I'm grateful for personally is that I followed the inclination I had when I first learned about it. I had that interest bubble up inside of me, and I was like, there's something in this. And I just want to say, if you're listening to this and you feel like there's something in this, then take the leap. There's in this world right now, being scared of regulations is like being scared of the boogeyman in 2021. You need to take some action and have some bravery as a founder. If you're too scared to move, you're not going to make it. So play with stuff, experiment, and shine as a founder, and actually get out there. So if you want to connect, reach out to me, say hi. I'm on all the social medias with my name, Rossco Paddison, on Twitter and stuff. And start a conversation with me. And I hope you and wish for you the best success for you guys.
And that was Rossco Paddison from SyncDAO, and he was speaking about building decentralized organization. Thank you so much, everyone. Don't forget to like this stream, subscribe, and share this stream so we can reach more entrepreneurs and help them answering some complex questions with a simple language. Thank you so much, and everyone, goodbye, and have a great the rest of the day wherever you are in the world.